Breathless. Forbidden, Book 2. Written by Susanna Thompson. Narrated by Lauren Sweet. Chapter 8. I drove around beside the Charles River and ended up finding a parking lot near a playground. It was quite a distance from the main attractions, but I just wanted to get out and walk rather than sightsee. I called Morgan in my agitation. She answered warily, because we hadn't spoken since I had called to ream her out for conspiring with Cade. I slept with him, I told her tersely. There was a pause before she responded. I'm assuming you mean Cade. Of course it's fucking Cade, I exploded. Are you happy now? Your plan worked. Did it? She asked carefully. I just got off the phone with him and he's very upset. Oh, is he? I questioned sarcastically. Why'd you act like you didn't know I slept with him if he already told you? Because he didn't, she replied. He told me that you pretended to get back together with him just so you could dump him. He didn't mention anything about you sleeping with him. When did that happen? Last night, and the night before, I admitted. Ah, she responded in understanding. Yeah, I remember how that is. You can't think about anything else when you first get together. We're not together, I insisted. It was a mistake. That's what I told myself too. But it won't work, Lexie. You can't fight your feelings. I'm actually not sure why you even want to. It was different with me and Blaine. I was so hung up on the idea of being in love with Logan that... She trailed off. Do you have feelings for Logan? No, I assured her. I know what I made you promise, but that was before I fell in love with Blaine. So if you've been afraid to tell me about having feelings for Logan, don't... No, I interrupted her. I have no romantic feelings for Logan. This has nothing to do with him. Then what's the problem? She asked. You want to be with Cade, and he wants to be with you. Remember how it ended last time? How do I know he won't do that again? She sighed. He really hurt you, huh? I'm so sorry I was too distracted to realize that. You acted like you were all right, and I didn't pay enough attention to see that you weren't. Why didn't you tell me? It wasn't that big of a deal, I said dismissively. It's not like we were dating that long. We'd barely even started. It obviously was a big deal if it's still affecting you now, she insisted. It's just, he can change from hot to cold so fast. I don't know if I can trust him not to turn on me again. I confided, realizing as I spoke that this was at the root of my problem with Cade. And that's why you're fighting your feelings for him, she said gently. I'm sorry, Lexie. I thought I was helping you. You didn't make me sleep with him, I told her. I did that on my own. He's really upset, though, she broached tentatively. I don't think he'll mess it up this time if you give him a chance. I exhaled in frustration. I don't know. I've got to think about it. But I've got to call my mom back right now. She called while I was with Cade, and I told her I had to go to the bathroom. With him? Like in the middle of... No! We were just leaving the hotel together. But I didn't want her to know he was there with me, I explained. I've really got to call her back. I'll talk to you later. After hanging up with Morgan, I called my mom and faked amusement when she asked me if I fell in. Then she almost gave me a heart attack when she asked me if I had seen Cade. Luckily, she launched into an explanation of Catherine mentioning to Robert where Cade had chosen to go to school, and that gave me time to compose myself. Did you know that he had applied to the same school as you? She questioned. No, I answered honestly. I assumed he was going to college in California. So did we, she said. I wonder why he chose to go to Boston. Did you tell him that you were going there? No, I replied. We never talked about college. He's majoring in business, too. Have you seen him in any of your classes? I debated what to tell her, But I decided that it would sound suspicious to claim that I hadn't seen him when we had the same major. Yeah, he's in a couple of my classes. I guess it makes sense he's majoring in business, since he'll be running his dad's company one day. Robert has made it clear that you could just as well be running his company as Cade. It will all be based on merit. He's not going to differentiate between you. I believed that, but I had no intention of taking Cade's legacy away from him. There were plenty of other companies where I could advance to the top, but I wasn't going to mention that now. I was relieved that my mom was more focused on my equality with Cade than on the possibility of something happening between us. Is your roommate back? She asked me suddenly. Is there anyone there with you, or can you talk freely? I'm alone, I answered warily, my anxiety spiking again over my guilty secret. Do you really like your roommate? I know you don't like Robert pulling any strings, but you don't have to live with her if you don't like her. Relief rushed through me. She didn't seem to suspect anything about Cade. Katie's great, Mom. Honest. I couldn't have asked for a better roommate. I launched into all the details about sweet, accommodating Katie. I told her about her reaction to meeting Logan and how she couldn't believe that he wasn't my boyfriend. It didn't hurt to keep Mom guessing about my relationship with Logan, since it would throw her further off the track about me and Cade. And I even had to drag her to a party because she had never been to one without her boyfriend, I added. Mentioning girl time was another tactic to throw off suspicion. At this point, I knew that I was being paranoid. It had been 2 years since Cade and I had been caught making out, and we'd been perfectly well behaved with each other ever since. Mom considered it a youthful mistake brought on by teenage hormones and the temptations of living together. Since that entire situation had been eliminated, she had no reason to suspect that Cade and I would ever pick up where we left off all that time ago. She was right, too, because our attraction should have fizzled out with time and distance. The fact that it hadn't was worrisome in itself. I could blame it on keeping it alive by harboring secret, unfulfilled fantasies about Cade. But what about now that they were fulfilled? Why was I still lusting after him? For the first time, I began to wonder if my attraction toward Cade would ever die. That thought put a pall over the future, and it made me definitely want to go work at another company where Cade wouldn't end up being my boss. As I got off the phone with Mom, I shook myself out of those thoughts. I was being ridiculous. Of course, Cade and I would both move on as we matured. We would eventually meet the people we would marry and have our own families. All of this would fade away to college craziness, just like the partying that our peers were doing. Cade, however, hadn't yet come to the same conclusion. He showed up at my door later that evening with a bouquet of flowers. Unfortunately, Katie had answered the door and let him in before I could protest. She was smiling from ear to ear to see his romantic gesture. "What are you doing here?" I demanded. "You said you'd go out to dinner with me," he reminded. "Did you forget?" I scowled at him. "Why would you still think that I'm going out with you?" He put on a bewildered expression. "You said that you would. I made reservations, but are you standing me up?" I could see Katie frowning at me as she watched our exchange. The bastard was making me look like a cruel bitch. "I have to get ready," I told him through gritted teeth. He smiled like he was the happiest guy on earth. "These are for you," he said, and leaned in to kiss my cheek after handing me the flowers. "I'll wait for you outside." Katie was back to smiling at me like my prince had arrived. "What are you going to wear?" she asked excitedly. I refrained from rolling my eyes at her clueless enthusiasm. Cade had on dress pants and a button-down shirt, so I decided on a pencil skirt and blouse. It was nice, but not too dressy. The skirt was also narrow enough and long enough not to allow him easy access. I was definitely wearing undies this time. Cade still looked at me like I was wearing something provocative. Hot, he declared as I approached him. He looked hot himself, and I was reminded that I preferred him in these kinds of clothes. It was something I had noticed at my mom's wedding, but he looked even hotter now than he did 2 years ago. More like a man, which he now actually was. My mind fast-forwarded to seeing him in business attire at the office, and I quickly shut down those suddenly arousing thoughts. I could imagine you wearing something like that at the office. I'd never get any work done, he remarked. My startled gaze flew to his at the coincidence of our thoughts, and a slow smile formed on his face. Were you thinking about that too? He inquired seductively. You could call me into your office and tease me by crossing and uncrossing your legs, giving me a glimpse of you without any panties. My office? I questioned in surprise. I thought it would be yours. Oh, is that your fantasy? He asked, and my cheeks heated in embarrassment. What do you imagine me doing to you in my office? Nothing, I muttered. Are we going now? You said you have a reservation. He led me to a car that was very understated for him. My Mustang was actually much flashier than Cade's Mazda. I wanted to blend in, he told me with a shrug when he saw my expression. As I sat down in his car, I tried to regain the anger I had felt toward him earlier. I don't appreciate you ambushing me into this date, I told him as he sat down beside me. You agreed to the date, and you didn't say anything about canceling it, he insisted obstinately. I thought that would be obvious when I told you this whole thing was a mistake. I told you I'd wait for you before I read your mom's diaries, he said. The change of subject threw me off. What? In Florida, he reminded me. Our talk on the balcony. I told you I'd wait for you, and I asked you to wait for me too. And you did, he said in a voice that was like a warm caress. I knew it even then, Lexie. I knew you were the girl for me. But you said that you were planning to use my mom's diaries against her, I protested. That's why you took them. That's what I told myself, because I didn't want to admit I was wrong. The truth is that her diaries confirmed what I already knew. She was a nice lady who had more sympathy for me than my dad did. She was the one who tried to make sure that I was included in everything. My dad wouldn't have even let me go on that vacation if it wasn't for her. I remembered Cade making a comment like that to her during that vacation, and that he had been surprisingly warm toward her. That had been before he stole her diaries. I also recalled our conversation on the balcony, so he was telling the truth about that, too. I already knew how badly I had messed up, because I couldn't get you out of my mind. I was miserable that whole time until I saw you in Florida. When you talked my dad into letting me stay, I knew that we still had a chance. That gave me hope, and I knew that I just had to wait until we could be together. So please forgive me, Lexie. Please don't give up on us now when we can finally be together. I gazed at him uncertainly. Do you really mean everything you said? Yes, he declared. I'm so sorry, Lexie, and I promise to make it up to you. I want to take you on all the dates we never had. I exhaled heavily, trying to expel my doubt. What he was offering sounded so good, and it was what I wanted too. Okay, I'll give you a chance, but you have to prove to me that you want more than just sex. He smiled wickedly at me. You're the one who called me to your room with ulterior motives. You wanted to use me for a one-night stand. His expression actually darkened after he spoke that last part, like he wasn't happy about being used for sex. Well, I said awkwardly, now that we're dating, it should be real dates instead of just hooking up. Like tonight is just dinner. His eyes took on that wicked glint that made my stomach dip. Just dinner, he agreed. No sex. Right, I confirmed, even though my body failed to get the message.